Good morning, everybody. Yes, it's a Wednesday morning. It's chilly as hell outside. It's a winter. Yeah. There it is. Special winter's treat just for you. That's how we wake up. That's how we know we're awake on a winter Wednesday morning. All right, let's get cracking. You know, I was thinking about it. If you just gave me 5 hours, a good Blu-ray player and screen, I could convince Joe Biden that the Transformers actually happened. I'm pretty sure I could. All right, let's go. We are live. Yes. All right, so we got Ryan in the studio in Johannesburg. There he is. How cold is it this morning, Ryan?
It's so cold. It's unbelievably cold. I'm like wearing hoodies and stuff now.
I know we mustn't talk about the same thing every day, but I mean, this is what everybody's going through. Like, I left something out yesterday that when I woke up to go and shower before the show yesterday morning, the water was cold. So I was like, no. I'm not Ben who does these early morning ice baths. So I was like, forget that. Forget about it. So that was how my morning started yesterday. But I did after the show, because the studio is all right. But then as soon as you go out of there, and my office is miserably cold. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes, and then I had to go and do an event. There was this conference, this expo on at the Sandton Convention Center. So I literally went down the road in my car, and I stood in the corner of the Sandton Convention Center. There's like a glass window on the top floor. And I know that place pretty well because I've been there for a lot of events. So I went up to the top of the 5th floor corner, and there's this beautiful corner window where the sun comes right in, right? I just stood there and I was listening to podcasts on my phone, and I was like, this is the best place to be, for sure. That is how you keep warm, ladies and gentlemen. You find a warm, sunny place, and you just stand there. We've got a couple of them around the office, but they only really come out after about 9, 10. Then you can stand outside. There's one where Lebang is always busy doing her calls and things. She's figured it out. There's this one spot where you can stand, and then it's very pleasant. But the rest of the place looks like shit.
Yeah, it's like a cold wonderland over here.
Have you found your winter place yet where you can stand in the sun?
So it's by Lebang's spot. That's the problem. So Lebang's always there on calls, so I can't work there all the time. And Sipiwe is, she also is outside now.
Is there a fight for territory yet? Because that's going to happen, right?
Not yet, but I feel like if it keeps going this way with the weather, I feel like there's definitely going to be a territory issue.
Fatima says,
"Shame is it yesterday, by the way?"
Oh, it was very cool. So it was a fintech conference actually. And I saw our friends from markets.com were there. But I interviewed the guy from the Financial Services Conduct Authority, the FSCA, what an interesting thing they have to do. They have to try and be like the government of fintech. And I asked this guy about how do you deal with all these like Instagram liars, these fakes, these crooks on Instagram, these people who basically have no licenses whatsoever, and they tell you, I can make you rich and I can teach you how to be a trader in like 2 days. And look, I'm sure some of them do make people money, but most of them steal people's money. And we've all seen them. We all know what kind of people we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones who have like 100 fake accounts. They follow everybody. They always got pictures of themselves posing with cars and in front of fancy hotels in like Dubai. And they all say something like God first, or I love Jesus, or they quote like a Bible verse. And straight after that, it's like financial advisor. And you're like, please, these two things do not go together. Either you're a financial advisor or you're a person who trusts God entirely with your portfolio. You can't be both. And if you're going to trust God with your portfolio, why can't I just trust God? I don't need you. Right?
Exactly. No, I'm with you.
But if you're an actual finance whiz kid, if you're like some kind of genius that I need to follow and pay attention to, if I want to make billions like you look like you do in your photographs, which are all the same photographs, by the way, that everyone else has, then you're not selling yourself very well to me. So
Exactly.
I asked this guy, how do you tell the fly-by-night guys from the others? And he pretty much said what I've just told you now, but he said the FSCA actually go after these people. They find, and they've actually put some of them in prison. So it's not as if they're doing nothing, but it's a very difficult thing to do because a lot of these guys don't live inside South Africa. So you struggle to find, you have to find their actual physical address. You have to find out whether you have jurisdiction over them. So it's a difficult thing. We're part of this global community. So, one of these crooks could be living in Abuja, or he could be living in New York, or he could be living in Cape Town. You just don't know. And it costs a lot of time and money and resources to find them and to go after them. But with some of them, it's worth it because they can find them and put them in jail. Others, it's a lot more difficult. And he said the thing about the licensed guys, like the ones that we've got on this platform, we've spoken to Luno, and we've spoken to markets.com, and we've spoken to Revix, and we've spoken to Troy Gold, and we've introduced them to our audience because these guys are doing really interesting and cool things in the fintech space. Hell, I had Michael Jordan on just the other day, who started Bank Zero and Rain and a whole lot of other really interesting businesses. So we try to bring you the most interesting people that there are. He said the thing about them is that they're licensed, and they have to jump through a lot of hoops. They have to be able to guarantee people's deposits. They have to be able to say, well, not guarantee as in no matter what happens in the market, you can get your money back. But basically that whatever money you put in is not going to be wasted, like what is FXT or FTX? I can never bloody remember. Sam Bankman-Fried style.
Yeah.
There are advantages to dealing with the real people as opposed to the crooks. But I'll bet you Mash knows all about these crooks, because those fake ones. Here, Chris says, I used to love leading those fake trader predators on, waste their time and frustrate them. Lots of fun. Chris, well done. You're doing God's work, Chris. Sanele says those and the slay queens pose next to luxury cars and fake humility. Yeah, they always have this weird thing. Like there's always within the first 3 pictures on their Instagram, there's a Bugatti or a Lamborghini or some kind of really, really fancy supercar. And then in their bio, their Twitter or their Instagram bio, it always says something about God and like how they love God. You know these people,
God,
right, Mash?
dude.
I know these people all too well, Gareth.
Yeah.
I know these people all too well. All over Instagram. In fact, some of them have gotten so desperate that they even flirt with you now on social media. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, he's so handsome. Yeah, like let's chat." Yeah.
I feel like this only happens to Mash.
Yeah. Ryan, this happens to everyone. They all flirt.
I don't know, Gareth. Right? Do you get hit on from like random guys with like Instagram cars and things like that?
And random women?
No, nobody.
Nah, Mash, this only happens to you.
Oh, okay. Well,
what do you do to them? Well, like, you also lead them on, like Chris in the comments?
I used to fall for it. I'm not going to lie. I used to fall for it. I used to flirt back. I used to, be like, yes, absolutely. Oh, yes, I'd love to come to Dubai. Yes. Are you offering me a Lamborghini? Of course. I'd love a Lamborghini. Yes. And then at the end, once you're hooked, or once they think you're hooked, that's when they go like, yeah, all you need to do is just invest $10,000 and then you'll make double that. So you'll be able to buy your own Lamborghini in just 1 month. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, I used to fall for it.
But it's not just falling for it yourself. It's actually making them fall for it. That's the fun. That's the fun part. You guys are gone off for some reason. I can't hear you. You've frozen, Ryan. And Mash is still... Oh, there we go. Hello.
Sorry. There we go.
Okay.
But yeah, I just realized that there's no reason to flirt with every person in my DMs who drives a Lamborghini.
Are you just realizing this now?
I'm only realizing this now.
You'll be so busy all day. So listen, Mapelo has just pointed out, because we were talking, Mash, before you arrived, about that spot that Lebang has claimed. You know where the sun hits just outside on the veranda?
Yes,
there,
I know very well.
she sits there and takes all her calls, and it's the only warm place to be in the whole of Cliff Central's new digs. So there's nowhere else.
But you know what? The reason why she's been going there is because I've been bringing my heater to the office, and I forgot it yesterday. And Lebang was just like over me. She was like, "Oh, how could you forget you? How could you forget the damn heater?" And then she just left and then just went to go sit outside in the sun. So this morning, I actually forgot the heater again. And I actually turned back. I was like, "Oh no, the heater." And I had to turn back to get the heater because I was like, "Oh, I'll be in trouble if I forget it." Yep, I'll be in big trouble if I forget that heater.
Well, Mapelo says, I get annoyed when you find that spot, but it becomes too hot. And you switch positions and it becomes too cold. Now you have to move up and down like an idiot. Yeah.
And you're also prone to sunburn. I mean, I'm not exactly olive skinned, so I burn like a crisp.
Winter sun is hot. It is hot, and it'll make you sick if you spend too much time in it. Mm-hmm.
Fundo points out those guys, those crooks on the internet. Fundo says they always start the conversation by saying, "Do you want to make X amount of money per week?"
Yes, I want to make $10,000 a week, and then go on Instagram and basically DM people and ask them if they want to make $10,000 a week. You know, one thing I've noticed is these people are also hacking people's Instagram accounts. Lots of people I know's Instagram accounts get hacked, and then you see a Capitec notification. It's always Capitec. No hate on Capitec users or anything, but why is it always Capitec? Is it because it's like the most relatable bank that most people in South Africa are using, and they'll queue up for miles
people love
to use the one ATM? They do. Well, but that's always the case.
I think we're getting better at spotting these people, but it's also they're becoming more desperate. So they are doing more to kind of win people over, right? They promise the world and they don't deliver anything. But Congo Chris says, am I the only person that can immediately spot these pyramid schemes? Honestly, are people that stupid? Well, like what are your immediate signs, Chris? Don't just like criticize the rest of us for falling for this crap, because we may or may not have. I happen to not have fallen for this yet, but it's happened to people. It's happened to people who are not stupid. So how do you know? I mean, what are your signs that this is instantly bullshit? That you instantly are being bullshitted?
Exactly. And if you're making so much money per week or per month or whatever, why do you want to teach me? Why not just double your efforts and make double the money?
Get paid.
Right. Have your wins, have all your money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
By the way, Gareth.
No. Simon says Simon says it's like most of these so-called celebs when they post sitting in a car and move their head to show the car logo. With the prices of those cars, ain't no way they can afford that.
Oh my goodness. I actually have a friend who does this. This girl is always in a Bentley, and I don't know whose Bentley it is. It sure as hell ain't hers, but her neck. I'm always like, girl, you're going to break your neck in that car. You're going to break your neck. She's always like, whenever she takes selfies, because she's trying to show the damn logo behind her. And I'm like, jo, it's such a sad way to live. And most, not most, always, they don't own those cars, always. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's terrible. Horrible. All right, so if I was making $10,000 a week, the first thing I'm doing is deleting Instagram, says Fatima. Right.
Exactly, Fatima. Exactly.
No, guys, I actually like Instagram because it points out all the bullshit artists, and sometimes they get arrested because after they rob a bank or something, they go and post their cars that everyone knows they can't afford.
Oh, you just reminded me, Ryan, of, remember Hush Puppy?
Yes.
The one who was scamming from Dubai, that the Nigerian guy was scamming from Dubai, and then he ended up getting arrested. Why? Because of what he was posting on Instagram. Similar thing happened to the guys who were doing the cash in transit heists. One of them actually bought like a GLE, whatever, Mercedes, and just posted it. And immediately, red flags. People are like, this guy earns like 5K a month. There's no way on earth this is happening right now. And they went after him and bam, they found the money. Thank goodness. That's one thing I'll always be grateful for Instagram for helping us catch crooks.
Yeah. But Graham says something that's also true. Some people aren't stupid. They're just desperate. And I think that's the problem. Like, we're in an economy right now where people are desperate and they will do anything to get a little bit of money in. So they'll fall for things that normally they wouldn't, because they realize, like, oh my God, I need money so badly. that right?
Yeah.
But there's also an element of greed in that. I always say it is just a disaster waiting to happen when you mix desperate and greed. Because you can be desperate and be like, okay, I could just ask my friends for $100, or you can be desperate and someone says to you, you can make $10,000 this week, and you'll fall for that. So it's up to you. So it's a mixture between desperate and greed. And that's where you get these people who get scammed out of hundreds of thousands of rands or even tens of thousands.
Well, I mean, Congo Chris says here, the first sign is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The second is if there's a small spelling error, it's a scam. Spelling error is to filter out smart people. So I've also noticed, like, there are people who they'll take your name, but they'll just put a dot somewhere in between so that it's still your name, but it's got a dot. Like they'll take Gareth.cl or GarethCL.iff, right? So, I mean, it looks to the untrained eye almost like it is your account. And they've actually taken pictures from your account. But then people realize too late that it's fake. If you're going to notice the spelling error, you probably won't fall for the pyramid. So that's a way for them to filter out the clever people so that they don't have to deal with you. Stupid was unkind. Desperate is also pushing people. Yeah, I mean, Mapello says, what is the best way to launder stolen money? Like from a heist? I'm asking for a friend. I don't know. But if you figure it out, tell us. Kampamba says, never be so thirsty that you drink from any cup. That is the easiest way to get poisoned. Ooh. That's a good way of putting it too. And Tracy says, a real investigator will definitely not be trolling Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook for your business. A real investor, sorry, will not be doing that. Come on, people. That is so right. I mean, again, you know, there might be people on there, but they're not going to be the ones who, they will not ask you for money on social media. It's like your real friends. If your real friends are asking you for money on social media, then you've got a serious problem because it's probably not them. And if it is them, that is nowhere to do business. I mean, I won't take anyone seriously if they do that with me. Just quickly, I saw something really scary that Musk retweeted yesterday.
Yes.
Some dude, did you see this, Ryan? Some dude found like the logs of when his WhatsApp microphone switched on, or when WhatsApp.
I saw this.
This is terrifying. So apparently WhatsApp was accessing his microphone like 4 or 5 times before he'd even woken up that morning at like 5 a.m. Now, what the hell is that all about? Why would WhatsApp be turning on your microphone at 5 a.m. before you're even awake? Huh?
Well, did he perhaps get missed calls in that time on WhatsApp?
No. So this is a feature. If you look on your phone under settings and under microphone, well, this is on iPhones. I don't know about Android users, but you can go into your settings and access it. It will tell you what apps were using the microphone at what time. And so I actually checked mine yesterday after seeing that. I didn't have any recordings, but I was like, that is some scary stuff. He even said, don't trust WhatsApp.
So where do you go? So you go under.
So your settings, and then you search microphone.
Where's microphone?
Microphone.
Just search it under settings there, and then go app clips.
Got you. App clips.
I have a microphone here.
App clips that have requested access to microphone will appear here. So I don't have any.
So neither do I. So it means nothing was accessed, but clearly that guy had WhatsApp access his phone.
Wow. Oh my God.
That's scary, right?
How frightening is that?
That is definitely terrifying. And these technology, well, thank goodness for iPhone. Let's start off there because thank goodness for iPhone to start off with, because it does report this information to us. And also, I don't know if you've noticed this, but iPhone does have like a little orange dot that shows at the top when your microphone is being accessed. It has a green dot when your camera is being accessed. So that is very helpful as well. It's like a little webcam green light that's on your webcam to show that, okay, your webcam is on and active and so forth and so on. So it's such benefits and such features that keep us coming back for more. It really is. But there's one feature on iPhone that has become a problem in my life personally. And that feature is Apple Pay. The other day I tried to Apple Pay. You know, Apple Pay has a limit, right? In terms of amount of money you can tap.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Don't you set it?
No.
Oh.
It just has a limit.
Okay.
I think your bank sets the limit or something. I'm not too sure. But
because I use mine all the time. When I heard you wanted to talk about this, I was very, very worried. So does this mean you have a certain number of times you can use it, or a certain amount of money that you can use through Apple Pay?
No, there's a limit in terms of amount of money. When Apple Pay first came about, I think the limit is about 400 Rand.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but now it's gone up. I don't know how much it is but it does depend on the bank, because I use RMB, FNB. So I'm not too sure. But lately, there's a pandemic of people actually forgetting their bank card pins as a result of tapping so much. They get to a point where they actually forget their PIN. So one day when you go above the limit, Apple Pay is going to be like, you got to enter your PIN because this is way too much money and it's a bit suspicious. Enter your PIN. And then you're just there like, you actually forgot your own PIN. I don't know if this has actually happened to any of you, but this has happened to me quite a number of times.
I had something worse happen to me, actually. I went to the bank for the first time in probably 3 years the other day. And it was only because I really needed, so I got a new phone and I couldn't sign into my bank account because the app wants you to match your card with your profile. So you sign in and then you put your card number in. But I lost my debit card probably about a year ago, and I've never bothered to go get another one. So because I've been using my credit card, so I just send money into my credit card. That's how I work, because I get all the benefits of a credit card. And then I would try to sign into internet banking, and then it requires a 2-factor on your app through your phone, which I couldn't get in. So I had to go to the bank the other day to actually get a new debit card to link it to my account and then be able to sign in so I could access all of my accounts. I was literally stuck. I was like borrowing people's debit cards the other day.
What do you mean borrowing people's debit cards?
I borrowed my sister's debit card so I could just have money on me, because I couldn't use Apple Pay. My credit card was out of money. I couldn't move money over. So it was a whole situation.
But well, I just noticed, because I went into my settings to see something. So apparently, this is interesting. I wonder if everybody even knows about this, but you need to go and check, because you've got a daily ATM limit, you've got a monthly ATM limit, and you've got a point of sales monthly limit.
Oh, wow.
So if you go in there, so this is what's happened to you, Mash, and I'm hardly doing like God's work by making this stuff obvious, but who would have known, right? So you can actually adjust the amount that you are allowed to spend at point of sale, which is where you would use Apple Pay, for example, or your card, and you can limit the amount per month or per day. And that obviously is a useful thing, because it'll stop people from spending if they steal your phone or they steal your card. But it also could be why you are having trouble, like with a certain amount of money. If you spend, you must be spending up a storm, Mash. You must be spending money left, right, and center.
Oh, how I wish I was spending money left.
He's not used to spending his own money.
Yeah, you actually have to go into your settings, and you'll see that if you look at your cards, you can actually go in and change it there. So that's useful to know.
I also just want to point out, Gareth, because my dad works for the bank, right? So he always told me, Ryan, try and use your credit card when you can, because if you use Apple Pay, the benefits fall away. You don't earn, so on Standard Bank, you don't earn the U-Count rewards if you pay with Standard Bank.
Oh,
right.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
They want you to use these things, and there are obviously benefits built in if you use them properly.
If you use the card,
Yes.
Yeah.
If you use Apple Pay, it all falls away.
My biggest thing is just using my credit card and earning e-bucks. That's what my life is all about.
But now, do you earn e-bucks when you use Apple Pay? Because I think that may fall away.
You earn e-bucks when you use a virtual card on Apple Pay, virtual credit card. So it does earn me quite a lot of e-bucks, and just living off of e-bucks nowadays.
All right, very good. Very good if you can do it. Nice job if you can get it. All right, so there's some useful info. We haven't exactly started your morning by not giving you practical, useful information. We figured out that you can check if your microphone's been used, if your camera's been used on your phone while you've been sleeping. And we can also check on your limits, which you can adjust daily. So there's some useful stuff to start your day. Steve says, cashless society is getting real. The mark of the beast is upon us. Mm-hmm. Well, I was trying to think the other day, like, how much cash do you actually use in a given week compared to how it used to be? Like, I used to use cash all the time. All the time. I used to pay for petrol with cash. I used to pay for groceries with cash. I used to pay for drinks with cash, everything. Now, I can't even begin to tell you when last I used cash. It's ridiculous. So,
yeah.
I about the mark of the beast, but definitely there's this change, and it's happened without us even realizing.
I haven't seen cash in so long. So whenever I do have cash, I just keep it in my car in the little what's it called, the glove compartment, not the glove, the one between the seats, and I just give it to the parking guards. I just keep cash specifically just for that. And the other day, I actually realized that there's some there's a certain cream I have to go buy, and this cream is sold at shops that only take cash. And and now I was actually
I don't want to know what kind of cream. Actually, I do want to know. Like, what is this for your face, or is it for something else?
I shouldn't have shared this, but it's a cream for even tone, just like evening out the tone of stuff, of skin and so forth.
Is this some dodgy stuff that you probably shouldn't be using because it's bad for you?
It certainly is. I mean, the only side of the places that don't take cards. So I believe it certainly is not something I should be using. But and so the other day I thought to myself, I need to get this cream because I've been getting a bit of a breakout. Not much of a breakout, but just a few spots. And I thought to myself, okay, when am I going to go to the ATM? Oh, which ATM am I going to go to? I started coming up with this whole scenario in my mind of how I'm going to get cash because I'm not used to it. For me, getting cash, going to an ATM and withdrawing money is a big deal. I feel like I'm going on a trip. I have to okay, what am I packing for lunch? Am I packing a sandwich or a cool drink or a prime? How am I going to go about it? And it's quite a big deal for me. So it made me realize that, damn, we're not used to cash anymore.
No.
Yeah. No, we don't know what we're doing. That's crazy.
Has anybody got any of that new money yet? Because I haven't. Not that I keep cash in me, but like, has anybody seen it yet?
No, but apparently this is hilarious. Yesterday there was a story in the news about how there's a spelling error on the new money. Did you see this?
Oh, that's...
I think I actually I sent that to you. I think you have it there. Yeah.
I saw that. So, do you guys have a picture of it? I saw that. Ahead. That is not actually a spelling error. It's actually, so they changed languages. It used to be, I believe it was Zulu, and not Zulu. Was it Zulu? I believe it was Zulu, but then they changed it to Tsonga. So the spelling is correct. It's just a different language.
Wait,
but you're telling me that with all the stuff all the checks that can go into this, that someone didn't check this and figure it out?
It was actually explained. So I saw on Twitter somebody who actually went to the conference of where like the new money was announced, like the money event. That person actually commented on Twitter and was telling everyone that, hey, I went to an event. It is not a spelling error. It is correct. It is actually they just switched languages from, I think it was Xhosa to Tsonga. That's it. Yeah, that's why there's a letter missing.
That's what it said in the article I read too. But I'm like, really, guys, this is like something you should be on top of. Someone should have gone through it and said, you know how you double check copy, for example? I mean, we even have to do this, and occasionally there will be a mistake, but we're not making millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of copies of a banknote. I mean, you send it to a couple of people to let them all proofread it, make sure it's right. You send it to 2 or 3 people who speak Tonga, and you just make sure that they know what they're doing. Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Mash, lots of people want to know. Carl says, what cream are you buying? Is it legal? Tone is going to be the least of your worries when the cops find out you're making children's blood, using children's blood to make your cream. And then someone even says, there's even skin cream tone or even skin tone cream in normal shops. Mash is buying Muti. Ooh.
Yeah. Why did I
Yo,
open my
it's
mouth? Now I have
people,
to. Hey.
people know, because you remember last time it was the blood cleanser, and
So
we know.
yeah.
no, the cream I'm getting is a cream from Namibia. It is not sold quite widely at shops here, so it's only sold at like
Oh, really?
salons and
Sounds dodge.
Scam. Sounds
That
scammy.
sounds
no, it's
very
it's
scammy.
sold at salons and stuff. So like it helps you match your haircut. If you get a new haircut or a new hairstyle and you just want to, you know, match your face, match the hairstyle, you just use that cream.
Oh boy, listen. What is happening with Nkosana Makate and Vodacom? Because I see they're still in court now at the Constitutional Court. This is a story just this morning from EWN. They say that he's won his case against Vodacom for the Please Call Me service. And apparently the drawn-out legal saga between them continues in the Supreme Court of Appeal this week. Makate developed the concept behind Please Call Me, but he wound up having to go to court in order to be officially recognized as the inventor after Alan, not Craig, the Vodacom CEO, took credit in his autobiography in 2009. Second is nothing. The case eventually landed up in the Constitutional Court, which found in his favor back in 2016. This poor guy, he's been fighting all this time. So what's the story now, Mash?
So Vodacom offered him 47 million rand as a settlement. And this actually got Twitter up in arms and roaring because they were like, wait, wasn't this guy owed at least like 9 billion?
No, it was a lot of money.
It was like something billion. So they were like, why is Vodacom only offering him 47 million rand? 47 million rand is nothing. So one person actually tweeted, this PMs at PMC Africa tweeted, they made billions. 47 million is not enough. They should be giving him 100 million rand minimum. And then somebody else commented on that and said 47 million rand is just legal fees in this case. This thing has been going on for years. And then someone else was like, to be honest, I'd take the 47 million rand under the conditions that one, that amount must be paid after tax. And number two, Vodacom pays all my legal fees. So it's got people up in arms. People are actually arguing and saying, why must he take 47 million rand? And the people saying he should take it are trying to justify it. It's quite back and forth. And then one more tweet that I saw, somebody called Tseko 2020, my financial struggles and short-term goals make me to think 47 million rand is a lot of money. But the visionary people with long-term goals like Nkosana Makate is like giving him 47 rand. Vodacom must up their game. So people are just arguing, and some people are saying that, look, 47, look, somebody actually posted a screenshot from Property 24 with an apartment in Cape Town, actually, that cost 49,995 rand. And 1,000 rand, sorry. And they were like, if you thought 47 million rand was a lot of money, this apartment in Clifton costs 49 million. It's a 2-bedroom.
But I love the way that all these people who are not going to get any of this money are so invested in this guy's story. Like, there is I'm all on his side because it seems to me that he has evidence. Otherwise, Vodacom would not have said, we're going to settle with you for 47 million rand if they didn't think that he had a chance of winning. And he's already won in the Constitutional Court. So they're now taking him. They're prolonging the legal problem for him by making it impossible for him to keep winning. Because he's eventually going to run out of money, and his lawyers are going to say, "Well, we can't keep going forever." And that seems like a deliberate tactic on their part. So I don't doubt that the big corporation is the bad guy here. I mean, Carl says, in contrast, and he may have a point too, I don't know, but he says that Vodacom guy is greedy. He's been offered a lot of money. You know, when you work for a company, what you create is their IP, and that is true. Like, everything that I created, all the characters and ideas and features and sayings and everything that I created while I was on a certain radio station, it belongs to them when you leave.
Yes, it does.
And you can't then, come back and say, well, that belongs to me. I mean, I remember I had to prove with things like it's Puza Thursday. We did a whole line of merchandise for Puza Thursdays. And I had to prove to the radio station that I had come up with that before I joined them. So I had to go and look for documents that had it written down or recordings that had it on before I joined them and that kind of thing. And I managed to do that.
Sure.
But then I went to the shops one day and I saw that they'd started making merchandise, and one of the stores had started making like party cups and party hats and like outfits and shirts with this on and all the rest of it. And I didn't have the money to sue them, so I just had to go with it. You know, so sometimes you lose because you're just the small guy, and sometimes you've got to fight them. And I admire Nkosana Makate for going after them like this. And I think, you know, part of me says he should take the money and run, because it's nice to get this money for an idea that you probably wouldn't have been able to claim as your own because you worked for the company. But at the same time, I think that Vodacom are probably at the low end of what they should be paying him. And if they just put it up to, I don't know, 100 million, then maybe he'd settle and maybe they'd be rid of this. But it's almost like they want to push and push and push until eventually his lawyers say, we're not doing this for nothing anymore, you know? Or for, what do they call it? Contingency. Sure. Where they get a percentage of money.
You can't trust these companies.
It's a horrible story. You can't trust them. And I'll tell you something, like they should have just given him a kind of an acknowledgement fee. They should have said to him, listen, we know you came up with this while you were working for us and it does belong to us, but here's, you know, whatever it is. If it was 40 million that was on their mind, then I bet you Please Call Me has made them so much money that there is a part of me that feels like I'm with these people on Twitter who are angry.
Yeah.
Because they're standing up for the little guy as they see it. But then there's also a part of me that just hates these telcos, because we've been, you know, South Africa at one point we were paying, I think we might still be up there somewhere. We were paying the highest fees in the world for connectivity. Remember when they were charging us R2.50 in SMS? You remember that?
Yes.
Wasn't that long ago? And and these guys were raking it in. I mean, there wasn't a South African who wasn't spending at least 10% of their money on their cell phone at one point, no matter who they were, you know, except the very, very rich, obviously. So I think this is an interesting discussion, because it's actually about ordinary people versus the big guys. It's actually about whose ideas are the best ideas, whether corporations can come up with good ideas. And it's about doing the right thing. So I kind of understand why these people who aren't getting any of the money that they're talking about on Twitter are talking about it. And Simon says, the 47 million is trash. I think the lawyers also get a cut from the settlement. So it doesn't make sense for him to take the 47, especially when they made billions.
Yeah.
See?
It certainly doesn't.
These are the opinions of the people.
My parents actually wrote like I don't want to say an app, because back in the day it wasn't really an app, but it was an old program that my dad had come up with, and my parents and another programming like friend of ours spent weeks, if not months, on this program, which basically back then, when it was still the old Nokias, you could recall emails from your inbox via SMS. It was something that my parents wrote, and they actually took it to MTN to present as like a feature to sell to them, and they had signed an NDA. And within 2 weeks after that presentation, MTN had come up with something similar and released it, and it was tweaked differently.
So much.
My parents lost out, basically.
Damn, Ryan. I mean, you could have been a trust fund kid.
I know, right?
Yeah, you really are, but
you could have been buying us all. Shame.
Prime.
Yes, Ryan went on a bagel run yesterday while we were all sitting in the office. A bagel run is where he goes to this place down the road where they sell really, really nice bagels. Oh my God. And he came back with, you know, he'd asked people and then only 2 people had ordered. So he came back, and the rest of us, I think it was me and Lebang and you, Mash, we were sitting in the office. We're like, thanks, Ryan. And he's like, you didn't ask.
I was sitting there like, why is everybody eating a bagel? Was I not briefed?
Missed out.
Oh my goodness, that was absolutely awful. But a lot has been happening. First of all, who's going to Westlife's concert?
Oh God,
Westlife is coming to South Africa. I am so excited.
Okay. we didn't talk about this with Lebang yesterday, but we were sort of talking about it before the show because she was big on the Backstreet Boys and now that's happening. I think has it happened or is it happening? I'm not
No,
even
it's
sure.
it's happening. I think it's is it November?
They're all happening around November.
Backstreet Boys, yeah.
They're all happening around November. So
okay, so with Westlife, I mean, I remember meeting these guys and interviewing them back in the day when they first came to South Africa, and they were once a big deal. And I mean, I had the most hilarious interview ever with them because there were 5 guys in the band, and
were they all wearing white?
Yeah. And I went to Sun City and I interviewed them. They first of all, they're Irish, so I walked in and I sat down. I was the last interview of the day, and they'd been asked all these boring questions like, who are your favorite musical influences? And was it fun to sing with Mariah Carey on the song? And blah, blah, blah. So I sit there and I go, hey, guys, so there are 5 of you, right? There was this report the other day in the Irish newspapers that said that 1 in 5 people in Ireland have been molested by a priest. So which one of you? They loved that. They all started laughing. They were like, oh my God, you're so funny. You're going to drink with us tonight and all this kind of thing. So and I ended up, I mean, this is not a word of a lie. So I've told the story I think I might even have told it on the show before. I ended up helping the one guy from Westlife to get his engagement ring for his girlfriend because he wanted to buy a diamond here in South Africa. And I didn't know who he could talk to for diamonds, but I phoned someone who eventually found someone. They opened up a jewelry store on a Sunday afternoon, and he went in and bought his wife's engagement ring. And I was there when the whole thing happened. I helped this dude to find his engagement ring. So we ended up, like, we had each other's numbers, and they'd tell me when they were coming to South Africa, and it didn't happen all that often. But they became, like, I suppose you could say, distant friends of mine in some way. So I would actually go and see them just to have a good laugh and drink with them again. But I mean, I don't know that, I'd particularly be going for the music. Let's put it that way.
Be careful. Don't advertise that. We might have to demand those diamonds back.
Yeah, exactly. Like the ones that the king was crowned with, right? You got all these South Africans going, give us their diamonds back. And you're like, what is Julius going to do with a giant big diamond like that? You just know he's going to use it for nefarious purposes, and he's going to, like, I don't know, he'll sell it to some scuzzy underlord in the crime world. Anyway, it's hilarious.
Mara, but Westlife, we're going to get tickets, right, Ryan? Right, Gareth? We are going. Sure. We're on. The music is dope.
Okay, well, what do they sing? Because I was trying to figure this out yesterday. Is it As Long As You Love Me? Is that Backstreet Boys or Westlife?
Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
They sing Can't Believe That I'm a Fool Again. You know that one?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's so bad. Oh man, they had a lot of good songs actually in their time. But like Congo Chris is saying here, and this really is something I'm worried about. Westlife, Backstreet Boys, Madonna. What century are we in? Is it the 90s? Because it does feel.
I love it.
Who are the big names who could fill a stadium? And don't say Taylor Swift, Ryan. But who are the people?
Taylor Swift won't come here until she retires.
Well, exactly. This is the problem. We pick up all the scraps after these people have retired, and they look at their bank balance and they go, "Oh, we could do with some more money." And then the next thing you know, they're here. So I just feel like we've become a dumping ground for like really old bands. And no disrespect meant to Westlife or anyone else, but I just think
Backstreet Boys, Boys to Men.
2023.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
These guys were here in what, 2001 or 2002. Yeah. That's how long ago they were here. I'm like, dude, you can't still be touring. It's just not. It's not cool.
It's like 20-something years. Yo,
but come on.
22 years later, I grew up listening to Backstreet Boys. My mother would always play it while we're cleaning. She'd play like Brandy, Full Moon, Backstreet Boys, Westlife. So these are a bit of Madonna here and there, Whitney Houston. So these are all people I grew up listening to while I was cleaning, while I was busy polishing the stoop with that red polish. This is all stuff that I grew up with. And for me, it's just such great nostalgia.
it's nostalgia. Let's just call it what it is. That's
Yeah.
fine. And if that is what you're doing, that's 100%. You go ahead. If it's nostalgia that's pulling you there, that's awesome. I'm not going to criticize you.
Yep, I'm getting my mom and I some tickets. Yes.
Good stuff. All right,
They're
so
probably going to charge the shit out of people. Like, it's probably going to be like $1,000+ if you want decent seats.
Yeah,
I just want to drop this in quickly because this is really, really cool. So you were in the studio when I interviewed him, but Pieter-Dirk Uys popped in last week.
Yes.
I had the most amazing conversation with this guy. I promise you, if you don't listen to any other interview, you need to listen to this one. I hardly said anything. I hardly asked anything. He was on a roll. He was being funny. He was being deep and meaningful and spiritual. The guy's lived a life. He's met all the people you could wish to meet. The things that he was talking about were so absolutely astonishing that I just found myself quietly bearing witness to this incredible life that he's lived. And I would love you to just listen to it, to hear what he says about regret, to hear what he says about love, to hear what he says about best friends. It's just really, really powerful stuff. And it's coming up this morning at 7:00. So please don't miss it. It's going to be, I think it's one of my favorite interviews of the last 2 years. So take a listen to that. That's coming up. And then while we're talking about this, let's also talk about our favorite series, Beyond Madness, which is with Prof. Christopher Paul Szabo. Of course, he's terrific. You know him very well. He's been on this show before. But the term trauma is widely used. And I think maybe some people overuse it. Like they say, I'm traumatized because, I went to the ATM and it gave me 20 rands instead of 50s. People come up with the most stupid thing to be traumatized by. And there are lots of people who have plenty of real trauma in their lives. But the experience of trauma is cited as an underlying host of psychiatric conditions. And this week's episode of Beyond Madness, they're joined by Dr. Carrie-Anne Lowe, along with Alice from the Alice and the Prof Instagram account, who also shares her personal experiences. Beyond Madness brought to you in proud association with Adcock OTC, sponsors of Brave. Adcock Ingram OTC, sponsors of Brave. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. It really is just a superb podcast. It's worth listening to Prof and hearing his wisdom and all of his guests who are terrific. And especially if you're one of those people who wants to know about how trauma really works, these guys unpack it for you step by step, and they make it easy to understand too. Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Very, very good. Okay, let's go to the calls. Hey, good morning.
Hello, morning, Gareth.
Morning. Is this Mapelo?
Yes.
See, Mapelo's becoming like our regular caller. Go ahead, dude. What's up?
No, I think about trauma. I'm also traumatized by the fact that you spoke about a few weeks ago, Real Housewives, and I found myself watching one and enjoying it. So I'm like, no way.
Sorry, dude. So it was my fault you ended up. So it's my fault you ended up watching Real Housewives.
I'm taking no accountability. It's your fault. So good, dude. It's so good. Jesus.
It is.
Why would you say it's good? It's awful. These people are terrible. Why would you watch that nonsense?
Let me tell you something. I started with Real Housewives of Kevin. It was so good. Then I tried the others to buy those shit, all of them. But Devin,
all right,
I'm telling you.
All right. Well, thanks, man. Thanks, Mapelo. There we go. I've been blamed for Real Housewives fever. I've told you I can't watch that stuff. I can't watch it at all.
Gareth, that stuff is good. There's so many quotables. There's a new term that I learned for saying you're broke. It's saying I'm financially overstretched.
Oh, yeah.
And
there we go.
I'm learning all this stuff from Real Housewives. So it's really interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff.
This is a great point to bring Sean Sanders in. And Sean, I was talking earlier with Ryan and Mash because I was at the at some conference yesterday, which was really interesting. I was speaking to the guy from the FSCA, who I know you guys have dealt with, because everybody who's registered in South Africa has to register with the Financial Services Conduct Authority. And he was telling me about all these crooks online. And I remember it was probably sometime last year that someone was using your pictures and claiming to be you, but they'd made a fake account of yours. on Instagram. So it happens to everybody. It's even happened to you. You got to watch out for these crooks, right? That's a big part of kind of being alert and being aware online. It's not just knowing how crypto works, knowing how to invest, knowing where to invest, watching the markets, paying attention to things, being patient. It's also looking out for the crooks.
No, totally. Morning, Gareth. Morning, team.
Morning.
Every single day, I get about 5 messages from friends that have been engaging with this imposter that's got this other Instagram account that's offering Bitcoin trading strategies. And it's one of these things where it's like, just send me, 250,000 rands worth of Bitcoin or 25,000 rands worth of Bitcoin, depending on how much money that person's able to gauge you have. And then it's a case of, okay, now you send me this Bitcoin and I've got this trading strategy that can outperform the market. And it is insane. I mean, I've got friends that studied actuarial sciences that have fallen for this, not necessarily made the payment, but, been chatting to this guy for months. And I'm like, why don't you just message me on WhatsApp? And, just check that it's me. I'm not going to be soliciting investments over Instagram. I'll be on Cliff Central.
So that's the important thing, is like, you wouldn't be soliciting investments over Instagram. That should be the first clue, as one or two of our listeners so far have said. But let's just talk for a second about what kind of things you guys have to comply with. I know this isn't what you wanted to talk about this morning, but I thought it was interesting speaking to this Awelani Rulani yesterday from FSCA. You guys have to obviously jump through a lot of hoops. There's a lot less red tape than maybe there is in certain sectors, because they've tried to make fintech more accessible in South Africa, and they really are doing the best they can, I suppose. But you have to comply with certain rules in order to be a registered trader and to be a registered platform like you guys are. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. I mean, we've had to jump over loads of hoops to this point, and it's only going to get more intense over time. So, we've prepared ourselves over the last 16, 18 odd months for this. I think the first thing is, if you look at the FSCA, they've got out a sort of crypto registrations list. So you actually have to register as a crypto asset service provider. So in South Africa, we call crypto exchanges and crypto platforms CASPs, which are crypto asset service providers. And you have to be an authorized CASP in order to continue operating. So the FSCA needs to say, yes, you've got a history of operating. You don't have customer complaints. You actually are a decent operation. We vetted the individuals behind the business. So that's, the foundational sort of starting point. Then you've got to register with the FIC. That's the next thing that you've got to get done. You've then got to get regulated and either get a category 1, category 2, category 3, category 4 FSCA license. So we went out and preemptively, and I think a couple of the other major exchanges in South Africa are doing something similar, but we went out and got a category 1 and a category 2 FSCA license. And essentially what this enables us to do is to offer traditional securities. So not even just crypto just yet, because crypto is not yet sort of a regulated asset category, but offer traditional securities on the Revix platform in a fully regulated fashion. We can then also provide financial or discretionary advice with our category 2 license. So those were licenses that are acquired quite recently. But if you look at what's happening internationally, I mean, regulation is going to continue to increase in the crypto space. And that's actually a good thing, right? Because it protects consumers at the end of the day. But it is balancing this, you want to have innovation. And so far, you've been able to actually innovate in the crypto space, certainly in South Africa. But then you also want to be able to naturally protect consumers. So, let's hope that the FSCA gets that right.
All right. So let's get into it. How has the crypto market been performing since we last spoke a week ago?
It's been pretty flat. It had a good start to the week, and then it's pulled back. So the whole crypto market's back about 4%. Bitcoin sitting at $27,500, down roughly around 4% for this week. Ethereum about $1,850, down 1.25%. But it's been a good week for gold. We offer gold as an investable product on the Revix platform, and gold's up to $2,040. Just up 1.25% this last week. So yeah, not a terrible week for gold, but we're all kind of waiting for this massive announcement today from the Fed. You've got the consumer price index that's coming out. And I suppose, as soon as that inflation print comes out, the Fed's going to have to react. And that's, I think, what everyone in the market is really looking at right now.
All right. Well, there's a Bitcoin mining halving, which is happening next year. So that means the reward for actually doing the mining, for the processing that people do, and they've always received Bitcoin for that, that is being halved. What does that mean for the average investor? What does it mean for people who own Bitcoin?
Yeah, so essentially the inflation rate of Bitcoin is declining. So I learned a new word when I was actually looking up the Bitcoin mining details, and it should happen in April, May next year. Remember, it happens every 210,000 blocks. So that's not necessarily just a specified point in time in the future. So between April and May, and it's a quadrennial event happening every 4 years. So a new smart word that we can use. And then, essentially you've got the amount of Bitcoin being produced roughly around every 10 minutes going to 3.125 instead of the 6.25 that you have today. Now, because you've actually had a lot of the Bitcoin mined that's already in circulation, you can only ever have 21 million Bitcoin that exist. Right. You've got about 91% of that today that has already been mined. So, you're only looking at having roughly about 9% of the total Bitcoin supply ever being mined in the future. It means that Bitcoin's inflation rate goes from 1.8% currently per year, which is in line largely with gold, going down to 0.8% after the halving. So if you imagine, what is inflation, right? It's the supply of Bitcoin in the market here. Well, if you have the same sort of demand that you've had always, but the amount of the supply has declined, well, that should be a positive driver for prices. And historically, accumulating Bitcoin now up until this halving event is a good strategy, but the real benefit that you get is actually after this halving occurs, because it does, so the media gets into the space. There's a lot of debate around what it actually means, and that just creates a lot of PR for Bitcoin.
So I've got two bits of feedback here for you from two listeners. So the first one is, I think it's a compliment. You can never tell with the people who listen to this show. But Carl DeSantis says, "This is why I'm ugly. Nobody will steal my picture on Instagram and pretend to be me. It's Sean's fault for being good looking. So take that one whichever way you can." And then this one, Ancient Ether says, "When it was actually a good time to invest in crypto, Sean was nowhere to be found." Now the man comes into the picture after the initial rebound. So, maybe there's a point about that actually the best time to invest would have been like 3 or 4 months ago. Would you say that it's still a good time?
Yeah, definitely. It depends what sort of time frame you're looking at. I'm a Bitcoin bull. I'm a crypto bull. I think there's so much disruption happening in the space, but that's a long-term story. So yeah, sure, the crypto market's up 70% from its sort of December lows, which, that's fantastic. But, if I'd been able to time that and say, hey, listen, let's get on Cliff Central, let's start talking about Bitcoin back then, people would have told me, listen, this thing's falling through the floor. And we have to try to have a very consistent sort of discussion out there, which is, hey, listen, if you come to Revix, we want you to invest over a much longer. Yeah.
I remember getting emails from people saying, "Yo, where's Sean Sanders? He's not talking to us because the price is so low." So you guys must make up your minds whether you want him here all the time, or you want him here some of the time, or you want him to be telling you what to invest. Why don't you just take what we're giving you here? By the way, Lito wants to know about Novatech. Do you know anything about that? Can you throw that in quickly?
I don't actually. I wanted somebody to ask about Pepe Coin. I just think it's cool. I haven't really been following. Yeah, there's something out there called Pepe Coin. And apparently it's been one of these cryptocurrencies that's like Dogecoin that's been bouncing about. Now, I don't really follow these sorts of news articles, but I was waiting for somebody to chime in there going, when is Revix launching Pepe Coin?
Well, Duds wants to know any updates on when you can get a portfolio started in Australia. Do you have any designs on that?
Yeah, so Duds, if you wanted to go, you can actually sign up now, open a Revix account. You can have a US dollar account, so rather than the Australian dollar, which I don't think would make too much of a difference to you. And then, you can fund your account using US dollars if that's fine. But unfortunately, no, we're not yet authorized in Australia to operate. So we're looking at Australia. It is just one of those more difficult markets to enter in a very, very different time zone.
Well, KB says, "No, you must make up your mind, Sean, if you want to be here or not," with a laughing face. But okay, he's back, people, so don't complain. He was here last week, he's here this week, and he will be back to give us more useful information in the world of crypto and all the rest of it. You can find out more by going to Revix.com. Revix allows you to effortlessly own a diversified portfolio of the world's top cryptocurrencies, which automatically stays up to date with the ever-changing market. You can find out more on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with @RevixInvest, but don't follow any of the scammers, please. You've got to make sure that it's the real deal. If you're following Revix.com, if you're not sure, ask. If you're not sure, send an email. If you're not sure, speak to the people at Revix. They'll tell you. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Gareth. Team, take care. Right. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
All righty, it's 7 o'clock. Coming up on the other side of this, none other than Pieter-Dirk Uys. You don't want to miss this. It's lots of fun, and it is probably my favorite interview of the last couple of months, if not years. It's really cool. So stick around. That's on the way.
All I do is win, no matter what.
We can't be there. There's a heavy reliance on nostalgia that is dangerous. And I do love old music. We all grew up around it. We all love those songs. But for me, we can't only be listening to things from 2008 when it's 2023. And there's a running joke with me and my friends, and we'll be like, we hear Khaleesi's like Millionaire one more time. We love it. But at this point, please, stop it. Stop.
CliffCentral.com.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Essentially, a grey import is a vehicle that shouldn't be in South Africa and is imported and in the country for another reason.
100%.
Besides being for consumers in South Africa to drive around our streets.
Yeah. So if I had to define it, essentially it's a good that's been imported to a country through unofficial or unauthorized distribution methods.
I mean, if we call a spade, vehicles come into the country and they pass through our ports.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that's where the where it goes a little bit awry.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right. Well, it is Wednesday morning, and usually on a Wednesday morning, we'll play out one or two of the big interviews that we've done during that week. Just last week, I sat down with Pieter-Dirk Uys for an hour. It was easily the shortest hour I've spent in anyone's company in a long time. And I think you'll enjoy this. The guy was just on fire. He was so much fun. He was so easy to talk to. And with all the people that I get to interview from time to time here on cliffcentral.com, it's always interesting to me which ones stick in your mind, which ones are the most interesting, which ones are the ones that hold your attention for the longest time. And this guy, without a doubt, is one of those people. He has such a long and storied career in South Africa. And I think the contribution he's made to the arts is just next level. Even if you're not someone who was born in the 1970s or 80s and you don't remember Evita Bezuidenhout that well, maybe you think it's kind of a bit of a relic from the past. The fact is that this guy introduced to so many people the idea of satire, the idea of dressing up and being a character and inhabiting that character to the extent that she became one of the most beloved people in the country, even though she didn't exist. And Evita Bezuidenhout was really just one of the things that made Pieter-Dirk Uys the most brilliant performer. He also has a deep understanding of what South Africa's real character is. He seems to be able to grasp what it is that makes us South African across various race groups, ages, income levels, backgrounds, ethos, all of that stuff. He's just the real thing. And to sit down and talk to him for almost an hour was an incredible opportunity to kind of delve back into our past and find out things that I didn't even know were happening. I mean, for example, you're going to be blown away in this discussion when it comes to who Pieter-Dirk Uys's best friend is. Because when he told me the story, I got goosebumps. It was unexpected. I mean, I kind of had an intuition about it because it was in the notes and I'd done some reading about him and kind of his background. But when you hear him telling the story, you can't actually believe it's true. He talked about his parents, something that he hasn't done for a long, long time. He talked about the more serious side of his background, the things that molded him into the person that he is. And I just think if you're going to spend any time today listening to some wisdom, it may as well be from someone who's been around a long time, and B, who knows a lot. And both of those things are true for Pieter-Dirk Uys. So stick around for that. Also, don't forget, we've got a new episode of Beyond Madness on today, which is going to be very, very exciting. And thank you for every one of the comments that we got this morning. I can see there are lots of people here who are talking about old bands that they still want to see. I mean, Boss BGP says, Ruth, my son is a cam tech. He will be touring with UB40. UB40 are still touring. Can you believe that? So there's always someone who's excited about crap. I wouldn't call them crap, but okay. And Monica says, on yesterday's show, you spoke about car radio licenses. Well, it turns out to have been a joke. It wasn't a serious thing. The SABC is not going to try to impose car licenses, but it is hilarious. So yes, Monica says, in Nigeria, you have to have a license for your car radio. So it's not that wacky. It's not that far out of the ballpark. And the SABC, we know, have done dumb things before. And then the Rebellious Ruth says, Busby, well, good for him. We must encourage our lads, I suppose, to grab every opportunity they can. Listen, if you're going to go and support some old band and you love them, why the hell not? You should be able to do that. Okay, we've got some very cool things happening in the next few days, and we will inform you of those. We've also got the Burning Platform returning tomorrow triumphantly after missing out on an episode just the other day because of the public holidays. So Pumi and I will be back tomorrow with a full show for you on the Burning Platform. Also, Friday, of course, lots of fun with Simpiwe and Ben. And Ben has promised me, for those people who are always asking in the comments, can we please have some professional MMA fighters on the show? Well, we've got a big surprise for you on Friday. So that's going to be awesome. Stick around for that. It's going to be a very, very good show. Just to wrap it up quickly before we play Pieter-Dirk Uys, John Bad Dog says, Thomas Sowell, old guy that knows his shit. Great mentor. If you don't know, now you know. Well, I've got a Thomas Sowell book here. Here it is, right behind me. It's one of the most useful books for a non-economist that I've ever had in my life. This is it. Basic Economics, A Citizen's Guide to the Economy, revised and expanded edition by none other than Thomas Sowell. And I cannot echo enough what John Bad Dog is saying there. If you're going to read anything about economics, let it be this. All right, everybody, here it is, Pieter-Dirk Uys. And I'm very, very excited to bring this to you this morning. Stick around for a whole lot more on cliffcentral.com and don't go anywhere through the course of the day. Here's something specially for you, just to keep you amused, entertained, and involved this morning. Well, it is always a great pleasure to have someone of this caliber, and there are very few people in the entertainment business of this caliber. His name, of course, if you've recognized him by now, is Pieter-Dirk Uys. He is a living legend, and that's not saying too much because you have been a part of my life since I can recall laughing at the TV, and I think you also helped me as a kid to understand that comedy is really quite clever. I always thought, fart jokes and things like that were enough. But you came on in a time where there wasn't a lot that was funny in apartheid. And as a young kid, I remember watching you and your various characters. And I thought, wow, this is really, really smart. This is clever. This stuff requires someone with brains and an ability to summarize and caricature a person in a way that, honestly, I don't think anyone else in this country has ever got right.
Oh, my goodness, says he, completely dry-mouthed. Thank you. I hope, yes, I am glad to hear that. Not that I ever thought to do that. It's instinct has got a huge amount to do with where we stumble through the minefield thinking that you can buy an ice cream there. And really, when I look back now, and I do look back because during COVID was a very weird and terrible,
wasn't it?
Extraordinary thing. And everybody I speak to now, not that they say it in so many words, but they all say, my life has been changed by COVID.
Yeah.
Not just because of a virus that you were terrified of, but the fact that you were alone with yourself for 2 years.
And for some people, that's the most
Very
scary
hard.
place you can be.
Very hard. I was even looking at the mirror and thinking, where did you come from? Because, but then what I did was first of all, what do you do in a weekend in March 2020? You cancelled 204 performances in that year over an hour. And I said, and then my theatre closed down.
Yeah.
My little venue was over.
In Darling.
But it was like, now, boom, boof, in 3 days, boof. I had to get a permit from the police in Darling to go and feed my cats. No, you've got to be there. I said, listen, so give them a chocolate. Anyway, what do I do? What do I do? Grow a beard. For God's sake, you can't have a beard with Evita. You can have a beard with Margaret Thatcher, but not Evita. And then I started, being a stage manager, I was trained as a stage manager. I thought, let me just sort out things I haven't had the time to do for 40 years. Props, costumes, wigs, clean their eyelashes.
Oh,
so
wow.
I sat up in my little solid and sorted all that out. And then I thought, well, reading, yes, that was the greatest thing of the 2-year period. You could just read a book every 2 days. You've got to just sit there and read with a cat on your lap. But you know, I've got all my plays are on my website. So I've got that there, but I never did my reviews because a review from 1981 now doesn't make sense.
No.
So I thought, and I thought I've got time, but I've got to type them out because there was no internet. So as I'm typing Adapt or Die, Total Onslaught, Beyond the Rubicon, I'm thinking, how the hell did I get away with this?
Yeah.
Was I mad?
You know, actually, you are very lucky you didn't get into more trouble because we talk now about the apartheid government and we laugh at them. But I mean, I remember my whole concept of Pieter Botha was based on what your caricature of him. I knew nothing about the man. I was a kid, but I'd see him come on and wave his finger, and and I remember you doing that, and I thought, yeah, he's just summarized this old man who interrupts the cartoons every now and then to make a speech because he used to. And these were dangerous people, hey?
Very
Magnus
dangerous
Malan, Flock.
Yeah.
These were not people to be trifled with. And you really skirted very close to that edge sometimes. I'm sure there were nights where someone could have made a decision and you might not have been a free man.
When I think back now, I think, oh my goodness. I remember the times that things went a little bit awry. I've said awry 2 years ago. I didn't know there was awry. And the security police were outside my house in Melville. This car, it was a Toyota. I thought, what an ugly little color this was.
Yeah, the yellow ones, right?
No, it was a sort of a fail blow. And after about 2 weeks of this, I thought, wait a minute, these are spying on me, these old worms. So I took a tray with Cook Sisters and coffee, and I walked out. Not as Evita, I should have, but I didn't.
Oh, that would have been funny.
Walked out, and I sort of hear, they put the thing up, gone, never saw them again.
Oh, really?
What saved my life? I think stupid silliness. I was silly. I did silly things. I irritated them by wearing a dress or demorphing with a rock.
No, they don't like that. Hey?
And if Evita was the first person to write to them, which she did, and say, you must lock up Pieter-Dirk Uys. He's a communist and a terrorist. He's wearing women's clothing and all that. So anarchy was my key. That was my password and my PIN number. Sexual anarchy, social anarchy, political anarchy, religious anarchy. They didn't know where to fit it in. That was the thing. Now, when I was sitting 2 years ago with this, and I suddenly thought, first of all, how do I go with it? Then, why is the fear still here? Why am I in a democracy of 29 years and I am actually more frightened than I was under apartheid?
Do you think it's because you were young?
No, it's because there was a real light at the end of the tunnel. Now the light belongs to Eskom.
And we know what happens
very,
to that.
very concerned about the alternative. What is the alternative to a rotten one-man state, one-party state? We went from a one-party state of Afrikaners to a one-party state of, I don't even know what to say here, of clever people.
Well, for
clever
a while,
people,
listen, clever.
No, clever because they know where the money is. They're so clever. You know, again, what happened with lockdown? For 2 years, we were locked up. We were paralyzed by fear. Clever people knew, and clever people said, hang on, we can take Ukraine. And they did.
Yeah.
And we did nothing. And
Yeah.
one thing, we are being blacked out all the time.
Yeah.
And what do? Nothing. I look at France. I look at Paris yesterday. The French are out in the street because they don't want 2 more days, 2 more hours.
Yes,
2 more
2 more years of working.
Shame. Where are we with all this thing happening? Pit toilets. Where are we?
No
Nothing.
one's
we
protesting.
sit here like poop huts. I mean, come on. Anyway, to cut a long story short, because I want to talk to you about recipes, I suddenly thought I need a backstory to my one-man shows, just to explain who the characters were in those days. And then I thought, no, wait, I need another backstory to just put apartheid in perspective. The laws of apartheid, the pencil sketch, the pencil through the hair.
Yeah,
it
that's
was
right.
obscene and absurd. You know what? I ended up with 488 pages. So I thought, I've got a book. So I sent it to my publisher. This is in the middle of the lockdown when everybody was not dying, but nearly. And they said, oh, that's wonderful. Yes, we cried, we laughed, we are shocked, but there will be no buyers. And they're right. Who would spend 500 Rand to buy a book about something that happened 40 years ago? So I thought, oh, bugger it. I'll put it into my website. Where it is, it's called One Man Shows, the Black and White Years. And it's been in the website free to anybody. I've had feedback from all over the world. I cannot tell you how extraordinary, including the schools that I sent it to, whom I've been to with my AIDS program in Mbeki years.
Yeah.
And the kids are doing the sketches. The girls are doing the Winnie Mandela sketch. And then they say, why was Winnie Mandela in a show in 1985? And history walks in through the school door, which is not, isn't that wonderful?
I love that.
And now my second volume will be out on Madiba Day. That's going to be the Mandela years. Next year, it's going to be the Mbeki years. Then comes the Zuma years. Then comes the man with the sofa and the money years. And then who knows?
Just explain why you think there was confusion about the sofa and the money.
Well, now that was, when that happened, I'm always looking for a hook to hang something on. And I like Cyril. I like him very much. I enjoy the memory of Evita's conversation with him for Funny Galore.
Yes.
Remember the Funny Galore?
And Rolf Meyer.
And Rolf Meyer. It's all on the YouTube, by the way. All of those
well,
are available
also,
on
we've got to
YouTube.
say at this point that actually you can also still buy the DVDs of all your shows as well.
If you
and
find
there's
the
stuff
DVDs.
on the internet too, right?
Yes.
I mean, so isn't it interesting to see, and we'll come back to the sofa in a moment.
Yes.
I almost gave away the punchline.
Yes.
But isn't it interesting for you to watch how the platforms have changed and the media world has changed and the digital transformation and all that stuff that's happened has changed, but the content remains as fantastic as ever, and people they want it. And they'll find new ways of getting it.
What is so extraordinary about the 12-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids, they take my material into TikTok. I have Evita on TikTok.
I know.
And she's young and she's sexy.
Yes.
And I kept on thinking, who is this person impersonating my character?
And it was you.
And it's me. It's amazing. And all her 250 Evita free speeches that we did over 4 years, every Sunday we did a free speech of the news, and it went into the Daily Maverick.
Right.
And that's on the YouTube as well. And suddenly there it is. No, it's extraordinary. The information. What did we have during the apartheid years? Everything was banned. Everything was censored.
Despite that, you got onto the SABC.
No,
I mean,
I didn't. Evita did.
Evita did. Because you could put
They never got me on.
You could put a lot into Evita that you'd never have gotten away with as yourself.
Live, not recorded, not pre-recorded live, but live. Evita live. I was pre-recorded 3 weeks before it came out air because ons moet 'n bietjie kyk wat hierdie mannetjie doen, you know.
No, you were dangerous.
Oh, please.
They thought you were. And I think you were, because if you hadn't done what you did then as a performer and as a character in Evita, it wouldn't have made them look so stupid. Because when people don't know, look at North Korea. They don't allow parody and satire. They don't allow characters like Evita on because it's deadly serious. The moment you open up, you said history walks through the door through some of these things that you did in the 1980s. But if you let a little bit of mockery and laughter and less seriousness and parody and satire, things that people think are complicated, but actually are not. When you see it and it opens that curtain just a little bit, the light comes in and it just ruins their party.
Yeah, it does.
For people who have no sense of humor, and the only people who I think are truly dangerous in the world are ones who don't have a sense of humor, you broke those people. Because suddenly, to people like me as a kid, Pierre wasn't a serious person. He was a joke.
Well, that was important to make them feel attacked. You know, I mean, Nelson Mandela. How do you make fun of Nelson Mandela? It's like doing Mother Teresa with a dildo.
No.
You can't do it. You know what I mean?
Can't do it.
But Nelson Mandela had this great sense of humor. He laughed first.
He loved Evita, hey?
He was, Peter, where is Evita? And I remember once as Evita on stage, at one of these great, wonderful, remember in the 90s, he had all the superstars of the world.
He could snap his fingers and bring anyone here.
Yes, but we were proud of us.
Yes.
That's been a long way away. And he always got, get Evita. And Zelda would phone and, another dress, don't wear the same dress because everybody remembers what she wears. And I'd have my 15 minutes of fame behind Evita's eyelashes. And it was always marvelous. And of course, and they were all this Bono and Beyoncé and the Queen of Holland. I remember once through their eyelashes seeing, Bill Clinton looking at Evita with a funny look at the jakkals.
Well, he was the horniest man in the world.
Nelson Mandela would come onto the stage and he'd hold Evita's hand. And I remember once I said to him, it's a whisper, everybody was dancing. And I said, President Mandela, every time you see me on stage, I'm dressed as Evita Peseidnote. He said, don't worry, Peter, I know you're inside.
Oh, wow.
I treasure the man. I treasure Bidisma Tutu. They didn't have a sell-by date.
No, and they were the only real celebrities we ever had.
And they are still, to this day, their voices must be heard and repeated. It's so important. That's why the social media can do it, can repeat the best.
I do want you to just tell us about Cyril and the sofa before we move on, but then I want to bring up something else that I think you have a unique point of view on that I've been desperate to ask you about, and I waited for this, but the sofa.
Well, first of all, Cyril, I like Cyril very much, and I was pleased when he became president, and I'm still waiting for you to be president, but I'm sure he will be president. So Cyril, we're going to catch fish together. Okay. Suddenly this thing, drama, bala bala. What is this? What is he done? What's happening? Millions of dollars in a sofa. I think, wait, hang on. Wait, I didn't write the script. What's happening here? And I just thought, this is too good to be true. All I need to do is have a big pink sofa on the stage, and I have got my sets out there. Rustbank. It was in the Rustbank. And so I said, okay, now how do I work this into a show? No, but this is the terrible problem. There's too many languages here. We've got 11 official languages. People don't understand each other. Yes, they found all this money lying around. What are we going to do? And then comes a bit of Venda and a little bit of Xhosa, a bit of Zulu. And then somebody says, niemand praat nou Afrikaans. Okay, ons moet die geld, sit die geld in die Rustbank. Meaning, put the money in the Russian bank. Excuse me, because they've all got secret bank accounts in St. Petersburg, but now they put it in the sofa. It's too good to be true.
I love it. It writes itself, but we need your genius to make it happen, because I've never heard anything that true and that sad at the same time. So Barry Humphries died.
Oh, yes.
Now, Barry Humphries died just this weekend. And what I loved about Barry Humphries, besides Dame Edna and all those terrific shows that he used to do, was here was a guy who totally inhabited his character, much like you did, Evita. And I'm sure that your careers worked in parallel. In those days, you couldn't hop on the internet and see what the other guy was doing. But to me, you are similar in my mind. You're both tremendously clever, great writers, great satirists, just unbelievably confident on stage. Apart from the fact that you'd put on this other persona who was powerful beyond belief in your case and his, and you could address anyone as your equal in that persona, which you did and which he did. I think about the way that broke so many blockages and obstructions between, old kind of conservative stereotypes of men dressing up as women.
Yeah.
Second of all, the fact that these two were these larger-than-life characters who just had an ability to poke fun at everything and everyone. I mean, Barry Humphries would go and sit in the royal box and then be told by someone,
better seat.
I got a better seat, and get up and go with these enormous glasses and this over-the-top dresses. And you did the same thing with Evita, also on the international stage, where you were able to just for a moment let people imagine a world where someone this fun could exist.
Well, you talk about the world. Evita on a stage in Berlin, she got the Teddy Award.
Yes.
And there was this huge audience in Berlin, and there was Evita Bezet. Frau Evita Bezet, sie ist hier aus Südafrika, und das ist wunderbar. And Evita says, ja, by donkey, thank you very much. She said, I am an Afrikaner. Ek is Afrikaner. Ich bin ein Afrikaner.
Oh.
And then later in the speech, he said, you know,
JFK would love that.
You Germans have done so much for us in South Africa, especially us Afrikaners. You've set us such a high example. It would take us a long time before we have killed 6 million blacks. Ooh. You could have torn that audience into for a second and I thought,
I've gone too far.
And then they exploded with applause. There was a sound you couldn't
And the
believe.
Germans notoriously have this unfair characterization of not having a sense of humor. But for them to laugh at that, you must have first felt incredible relief.
What it was, it was what I call a moerseklap in die gesig. But that's what Evita. You see, again, getting back to Barry, getting back to Edna. Barry Humphries was probably my most challenging inspiration. Going back to in the 70s, when I was in London at the London Film School, I was there for 2 years as a student, and then I graduated and I thought, Christmas cook, I'm not going back to South Africa because I'd seen the BBC documentaries of what my generation of Afrikaans boys had to do under orders of bang, 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 and the children died.
Yeah, there's this brilliant movie they did recently, Morphe.
Yes, absolutely.
Which was really just an interesting way of kind of looking at how young South African men would have had to have been forced in there.
Important.
And especially guys who, were gay or grew up with slightly different identities or whatever it might have been.
On top of everything, it was still that as well. I mean, on top of everything, it was still that as well. And so then I created a job for myself at the film school to create the library because they didn't have one. And for the next year, my job was to go and find. I said to the principal, "You need real actors to talk to the students who are directing their girlfriends in films. That doesn't work." Oh, he said, "Do some." And so I get Glenda Jackson on the phone. She just won an Oscar on the phone book. Wow. And she came and all that. And all those things. Okay, so all the experience of being in London with that extraordinary freedom, except the reality that although homosexuality was not a crime, it was still very dangerous. But I thought, this is like walking the beachfront in Sea Point, so I know how to hide. Barry Humphries. First, Danny LaRue, this extraordinary drag Danny LaRue. Wonderful costumes and funny and packed out houses and just every now and then he'll just use his men's voice of "Hello, mate." But I saw the early Barry Humphries when he did sketches of an old man who's lost his mind, and I mean really some incredibly important things. Then, of course, Edna, who was quite ugly. Edna was she's a real housewife. Yeah. And then she became Dame Edna, and things became glamorous. Glamorous. And I thought, this is before Evita was even in my mind. I just thought, I love that. I want to do that. At the film school, I also did a girl in a commercial because the actress didn't turn up. So I said, give me the dress. I'll do it myself. Dame Edna is a housewife superstar, but very apolitical.
Yes.
Evita is totally political. Yeah. But the biggest difference between the two is that Evita Besaidner does not have a sense of humor. Evita Besaidner does not understand irony. Edna has a magnificent sense of humor soaked with irony.
So in some ways you made Evita harder.
Well, no, not harder.
Because you have a sense of humor. To play someone who has no sense of humor.
No. I must tell you something. It's a huge relief. First of all, the relief is that she is not a copy of Dame Edna.
No, not at all.
She does not have the big glasses and the purple hair and all that. And she's the first person who would say, sis.
But even though you were dressing up, it was believable.
Yes.
I mean, you took the trouble to make sure that everything about her was as authentic as possible.
Well, if she wasn't believable, Puk Botha wouldn't have fallen in love with her. And we spread that rumor in 1981-82 that Puk Botha was having an affair with Evita Besaidner, and he started believing it. And I have got faxes which he sent her at 2:00 in the morning. Obviously, nog 'n bietjie wyn, my geliefde ambassadrice, hoe gaan dit daarso? And also giving tips of how to make jokes and things about extraordinary. So I also had Dr. Piet Koornhof, who just loved what I did, which was bad for business. You don't want the other side to be a fan. And we said, thank you, no, Peter, very much, but I like satire. Satire is very important. Look at me, he said.
You told me, I'm sorry to keep going on these tangents, but you told me something fascinating when I saw you the last time about Piet Koornhof. And what was his girlfriend, Marcel?
Yes, Marcel.
And you told me about
the lady of color.
And you told me about his ex-wife.
This is a very extraordinary story. I heard, again, I wasn't there at the time,
I mean, it makes all the players come out well.
Well, it's a very important story. Pete, of course, had left his Afrikaans wife and he moved in with a lady of color. And that was like, he's proved to the world that apartheid, he's proved to the world that apartheid will never work. And that was lots of fun. And he took the jokes. He even brought his two little twins to the perron. And with Marcel, and Evita said from the stage, Piet, are you really the father of 2 little boys? And Piet Korum said, ja, nee.
Wow.
Then Marcel left him with the children. She took the children. She went to Germany with a man. She fell in love with somebody else. Piet on his own. Then somebody said to me, you know, Piet Korum was at the spa and he ordered things and he went and he said he doesn't have to pay because he's a cabinet minister. He's losing it. I said, no, wait. What do you mean he's losing it? And then I went on my way to town one day, I went into the spa there in Milnerton, and I knew the spa man because he used to be in Darning. I said, what's happening? We're having a terrible time because, yes, he comes beautifully dressed. He's obviously on his way to Parliament. It's very wrong. I said, well, the first thing you do is open an account for him. I pay for it. Whatever he buys, you put on the account. If it's chocolates, it's wine, it's that. Please do that. Please do that. And this went on for a few weeks, and I kept on checking, and I just thought, do I go and interfere? And I thought, no, don't frighten him and me. And then somebody said, you know what happened last week? His wife and his son came in the car, and Pete was walking back from somewhere in the street, beautifully dressed, and they stopped the car, and they said, hello, Papa. And he said, hello. And they said, get into the car. And he got into the car, and they took him home, and they looked after him till he died. His wife looked after him till he died.
The wife he'd abandoned.
Yes, that is so profound. And I'm happy to spread that story. You know, I think there were lots of details in the story of pain and of confusion and all the things. But somehow, you know, that's really a smart story.
Well, I'm glad you got to tell it here, because when you told me, it gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
You know, it's also a rare thing for someone who used to have fun with these people, used to make fun of them, but in a gentle, generous sort of way. I don't think you've ever been mean.
I don't want to be mean.
But
the temptation is huge, but I don't want to be mean.
No, sure. But the fact that you could then be in a position where you could tell a story like this that's actually quite heartfelt and
it's a
serious,
human story. It's, you know, one seldom thinks of them in politics as human. I mean, one thing Pete Korum said to me at a lunch,
because he was a bastard in his time.
Listen, politicians have no excuse. They've got no excuse what happens. They could say no, but they don't.
Right.
But he said to me, we had lunch together because he wanted me. I wanted to take my father. And my father said, ek kom nie naby die donders nie. My father just hated them so much because they gave him a hard time because he married a Jew. To the point that he and she never told me that my mother was a Jew.
Well, that's something we've got to unpack in a second. Yeah.
He said to me at the lunch, he said, oh, you know, Peter, you make fun of me. In Afrikaans, maybe, but I was saying, you make fun of me, and I don't mind because he's got funny ears. And my mother always said, you know, oh, you're a clown. He said, but you must always remember that I've always been the choice of 2 evils. I thought, what? What is this? He said, here's right on the tablecloth. It doesn't matter. You know, let's make a list of all the people in the cabinet who would be better than me at my job. And we could not find one. He said, so I am doing the job because I'm the best of 2 evils. Very strange, very strange.
What a way to characterize yourself.
And quite chilling.
Yeah.
And quite chilling. I mean, did he lose sleep because of what he was doing? I don't know. I don't want to make any apology or anything. But again, you see, all these things, and they come from all sides, especially now when you've got this extraordinary chorus line of creatures that you can't even think about in a horror movie. And there's a lot of stuff that you actually can't make fun of because there's no fun to be had here.
Well, they're so villainous. Right. And I mean, you need a little bit of human in the package.
But you know, there's a difference for me, very big difference between comedy and humor. Comedy is the joke, and jokes are great. Great. Yeah. Can't tell them because I forget them when I come with the punchline. But humor is like a fingerprint. Everybody's got a sense of humor, which is different. Everybody. Mainly, sadly, a sense of humor in a child is killed by parents and teachers. Wat doen jy? Wie dink jy is jy? Bly stil. You know, But
those horrible words, that's not funny.
That's not funny. Who do you think? Okay. The thing with a sense of humor is you walk into a room, as an example, walk into a room and your best friend is behind the door. You walk into the room and they come and say, boo, you go, oh, and then you go, ha ha, it's you. It's not because it's funny, it's because
Right.
somebody's there that you know.
Yeah.
And I think I want to use humor to make people laugh at their fear, like I laugh at my fear. When you laugh at your fear, you make that fear less fearful. It's still lethal. It can still kill you, but you're looking at it. If you look away, it becomes 20 foot high, not 20 inches high.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I try and keep in my framework. My definition, what I work by, is 49% anger, 51% entertainment, not the other way around.
Okay.
That's
But
it.
that's channeling your anger in a way more constructive form than most
But
of us
anger,
can.
raw anger, is if people walk away, who needs it? You get it all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you
Traffic
get the shout
and-
all the time. So you don't want that. Yeah.
Rise where people complain the whole time.
All the
You don't want
complaint.
that.
Nah, man.
So you mentioned now your father and your mother, and actually in your latest show, The Echo of a Noise, you talk about them in some detail. I mean, I also think it's really interesting that you've brought them to the fore. Hannes, that's your dad, and Helga, your mother. And you know, it's always been you and your characters, and this time we're kind of getting a bit of the backstory as well. But the story of your mother and your Jewishness is also the subject of some of the more serious work that you've done. And your character there, who we've got to know very well, the sort of mock Jewish kind of, you know, you're sort of integrating your Jewishness into your life. And I don't want to disassemble and try to figure out how the process works in your head. But you've made this a part of the arsenal of characters too. And this has been a hard process for you, because you've had to rediscover things that you never knew, that were kept from you, that I think must be quite painful to discover, especially later in life.
Well, you know, people talk about denial.
Yeah.
You know, denial. And you think of denial, Thabo Mbeki's denial about HIV and AIDS and all that. But I grew up in a house, happy house. Well, yes, of course, not so happy, but a happy house. As a little boy, and I was very on my own because I had an imagination. I had a friend called George. George and I played dinky toys together. We had all sorts of things, and my sister Tessie came and kicked George and my dinky toys into the grass. And my mom, a concert pianist, my father, musician, and so lots of Mozart was my best friend. And I had wonderful friends who were Jewish. The little boys that were. Their mothers were also musicians, and they would come with their violins, and there would be chamber music. And I always loved going to visit my Jewish friends because the food was divine and their mothers were divine. Hello, Peter. How's it? You know, I always fell in love with my Kugel mother, the Kugel mothers. And that's why Noel Fine is one of my treasured characters, because I love her and I do her with enormous amount of love and affection. But nobody said anything to me about my mother being Jewish. My mother used to come with us to church in Gekerk and get the giggles. We got the giggles always in church with my mother. It was terrible because with the hat, she always had to wear a hat in church. And why did nobody talk to me about that? I have no answer. I can imagine answers, but I haven't got the answer. Okay, the first thing is my mother came from Berlin, 1936. Her fiancé, who was not Jewish, said to her, I can't protect you anymore. Go to Cape Town to your parents. He had already sent her parents to Cape Town 3 years before. And I'll tell you when to come back, because this noise or if this Hitler thing will be over. Okay.
Sure.
So she arrives in Cape Town with her piano. The first professional job she got was to play a 2-piano Mozart concerto with a South African pianist called Hannes Uys. So my pa and my mom meet.
Wow.
And marry during the war, and then I am born just after the war. I'm born in September 1945. I'm circumcised. Okay. My pa always said it's a healthy thing to do. Not that we talked about penises, but I mean, I was very jealous of his when I saw it once in the shower. I thought, I wasn't want one like that. But nobody talked about it. And I have heard somebody said to me, someone who knew my parents, who has now died, this wonderful friend of the family, said, you don't, do you know why you don't know? I said, no, why? Wasn't I listening? She said, no, actually, your father was told not to talk about it. Your father was told by his cousin, Dr. D.F. Malan, the Prime Minister of South Africa, Hannes, jy praat nie oor jou vrou Helga nie. Ons wil nie hê jy is nie met die Jood getrou nie. because Afrikaners don't like anybody.
Yeah,
okay,
that's just absolutely
I mean,
unbelievable.
shocking beyond words. So she had to deny, because she was an extraordinary, when I think back, and with such love, and I wished I had the courage to have spoken to her and asked her things. I never did. And the first thing she did, she learned Afrikaans. Being a musician, she knew the language, the tune, the song,
Sure.
the music. And she spoke a wonderful Afrikaans with wonderful German words tucked in every now and then. But she did it very much on purpose. Tannie Helga. Tannie Helga is 'n Afrikaanse vrou. Tannie Helga kan ook Duits praat. So there's a huge amount of baggage, which I haven't knitted this into what I
mean, Peter, when you
so
think about it, this woman, she might not have made it here. You might not have ever been born. We know what happened to so many Jews who were in Germany.
Yes.
And by the skin of her teeth, she was here, and then she met your father. And then to live this life where almost it was a character for her whole life long.
And to survive because of the power of the name. But then she drove up to Chapman's Peak and jumped off the mountain. Now, there is another, excuse me, what did you say there? She committed suicide. I mean, you never recover from that. And you never understand it.
How old were you?
I was, well, listen, it was 1969. I was 19. No, I was a bit older, actually. And my sister, she was just turning 20. That, it was terrible for her, Tessie, and my mom was so close with the music and everything. But, you know, again, I don't have any blame. I don't have any negative feel. Listen, she loved us. She was given pills for her depression, which is also something I have to work through. Why? For so many years did she have depression and we never knew. She hid it from us as well. And the doctor's assistant, he wasn't there, was playing golf, and the assistant didn't tell her that the pills would take her down before the pills took her up. And she took 2 pills before she went to the recital, to play a recital at the SABC studios to record Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, Schubert. And she went to the piano to do something at the keyboard, and her fingers wouldn't work. Well, no, the pills were working. Her biggest nightmare was going mad because her mother was a bit Millie. She was wonderful. She was so eccentric. She was, you know, she was just, and she went blind. And so being a blind lady, she made fun of it. And that was even more difficult for people to understand. That's why I loved it tremendously. Anyway, and my mother, she committed suicide. That she drove and she left a note for us. And that was the end of that life, end of our life. And so I've had to work through that. And my sister has to work through it. And my father had to work through it. How can he understand that? Nobody could understand it. So she has left me with the knowledge of the fact that she divided her energy into 3 people. My father became a nicer person. My sister became an extraordinary pianist. And I started writing because she always said to me, "Darling, you're going to write." And I got her, "No, Ma, I'm going to be an actor." Yes. But you will be a writer. So celebration time.
Yeah. There's so many questions with something like this. There's that you must go over and over stuff in your head. Think about things that you think she said, that you might have heard, what you might have been able to say to her if she was around now. These are things that I think a lot of people deal with. And the depression, you say you're dealing with it as well.
I don't have any problem with that at all. Not at all. I've needed to really study it to understand it and not to say, "Oh, darling." You know,
so how do you understand it? Is it chemical? Is it genetic?
I think it's all of those things. I mean, it's really, I'm not qualified to actually have an opinion here, except to say, be generous with your attention. Be careful of not frightening somebody with it, or just saying, "Oh, never mind." Like people say, "Oh, darling, have a discipline,
get over it.
Get over it, get over it." But the most important thing that I am with me all the time is, and I say this very much at the end of my one-man thingy at the theater at the moment, is my father has just died. He's just died. I held his hand and looked at him, knowing that this is the one time in my life I'm not going to look away. I was always looking away from everything. Oh no, I don't want to look. I'm not going to look. So, and he squeezed my hand. Suddenly, this man who was dying squeezed my hand. I thought he was going to break my fingers. And then suddenly, pop, gone. Suddenly, he was gone. Like, he's gone. And I was there with Sunny, our maid, quote unquote. She was my Cape Flats mother. She closed his eyes.
Sure.
And I went back to the house. It was just before Christmas, and I'm standing in the music room with the Christmas tree and the music and all the things, the memory things and everything we had as a family. And the first thing I thought was, why did I not ask Pa more about his life? Why didn't I ask him more about Ma's life? Why was it always about my life? How is it possible that I know more about Sophia Loren's family than my own family? I cannot tell you how many people in the last, how long have I been doing this? I've been doing this piece for nearly 8 years. The Echo of a Noise, waited for me afterwards and said, I'm going to phone my grandmother now because I have also not asked my parents, because we were brought up not to ask questions. For God's sake, no, for your sake, ask questions, find out. And many people have said, I phoned my granny and I said, when did you have your first climax? And she told me. You know, it's this thing we brought up, especially Afrikaners, you know, you praat nie, you vra nie, and you never thought of that. I wanted to ask my mother, what was it like? In 1936, the Gestapo were marching down the street. My mother, they were on the 3rd floor of this beautiful apartment building, which is still there, I must tell you. Mm-hmm. It had a sort of a round tower thing, and she had a piano in that, and she used to play the piano. And then the Nazis came and put a red swastika thing right down, and the swastika was there, and she said it cut the sun away from my music. And so she took a scissor and she cut a square out of the flag, and she played her music. And there was a bakery at the bottom, a butcher was at the bottom. It was his shop at the bottom, and they were friends, and he also loved music. And he would, with a knife on the pipe, knock, because the police were coming, the Gestapo were coming, and the Gestapo were there. And then she would put away the picture of her father with his iron cross, because he got an iron cross in the First World War, and she quickly put with pins the swastika back, and she was there, and they came in and they sniffed around and they went in, and then they left without her, thank God. So, you know, I want to ask her, what was it feeling sitting around the table where Franz Michels, her fiancé, and you were all, and her parents were sitting around. Who decided on Cape Town?
Yeah.
Why not Canada? Why not everywhere else? Why Cape Town? You know, now I say, well, what can be further away from Nazi Germany than South Africa? Oh my God, that's a combination. You know. So I mean, it is.
Thank goodness they made the decisions they made. Yeah. We're much richer for you having been born here and holding up a mirror to all of us.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
So you mentioned Sophia Loren, and it is like she was the other woman.
She is the other woman. She says that about Evita. Right? She says, you know, the woman you do, she's starting to look like me. but Sophia, you taught me the eye makeup. I do Sophia's eye makeup.
But this is a story I don't think many people who've just seen your material and looked at all the amazing things that you've done over your life, they probably don't know the depth of this relationship. So I want you to tell it like you told the Piet Koornhof story, because it's quite something.
Well, you know, when I was a little boy, 11 years old, I loved movies. I fell in love with Debbie Reynolds. I thought she was absolutely fantastic. I thought she was great. I think I wrote a letter to MGM and I got a picture, which was nice. I didn't put it on anywhere, but it was a picture. But Dr. Verwoerd was a picture I had on my wall because he was the God. He was a gift from God. There was no talk about, you know, apartheid was a gift from God. And I had a picture of Dr. Verwoerd there because all my friends also had a picture of Dr. Verwoerd. My father was very angry. He said, "Geen politiek in Marius nie."
Really?
Yeah. Hulle is fail. It's a fail.
Even with DF being his cousin.
No, he didn't want to talk about it. I only really found out long after.
Do you remember anything of
No, I had no contact with him at all. No.
Really?
So then I found this picture in the Stage and Cinema magazine of the Sophia, beautiful Sophia. It was she was doing Houseboat with Cary Grant.
Sure.
I cut it out and I stuck it on the wall next to Verwoerd, and Verwoerd fell off the wall. The next day. She saved my life. And so Sophia, my father teased me. You like Sophia Loren? And I said, yes. He said, ach, Pieter, daai dik lippe. Jou Sophia Loren is a mate.
Sure.
Shoo. My audience makes a noise when I say that word. They go, oh. Yes, good. Make a noise. And it broke my heart. I said, but how can she's not a colored, she's an Italian. And then every time I looked at that face smiling at me, I thought, oh no, I've broken God's commandment. I've fallen in love with the colored. Anyway, things went on. I collected pictures of Sophia, and I did school, and I became a trick, and my mom gave me a return ticket to the Northern Hemisphere as a present. She said, go and see where I come from. And so I went to London, and a friend of hers took me to see Othello, the play.
Well, that was banned here, right?
Othello with Laurence Olivier. I thought it was Laurence Olivier, you know. I mean, I went to Germany. I met her fiance with his wife, and then I wanted to go to Rome because Sophia lives in Rome, and I had a picture of Sophia which I'd cut out of the Oggi magazine, waving at the camera from the apartment window, from her apartment. Behind her was an ornate lamppost, and behind the lamppost was a ruin. So for the next 3 days, I walked around Rome with this picture, trying to find the lamppost and the ruin, and I found them in the shadow of the Victor Emmanuel monument. And there was the window, and there was Sophia's flat. So I wrote a letter, and I went up there, left the letter for her. She wasn't there, but the woman said she'd give the letter. Went back, all the way back to South Africa after this. Weeks later, and I get to Pinelands, and there's a letter for me from Sophia. On the back, she'd written, from Sophia Loren. So I wrote back to her, and she wrote to me. And she wrote to me, and I wrote to her. We became pen friends. And the day I was standing outside the crematorium chapel where my mother was being buried, and there was no music, somebody had forgotten to put on the music, and they put on a cassette, and it had been warped in the sun. It was, it was like a circus. It was too terrible. And I just ran out, and I thought, I don't know what to do. And I wrote a letter to this address of Sophia, and I just said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And a letter came back, and she just said, you've got to help your father and your sister. You can't cry now. You will cry one day, but not now. Now you must be brave. Be brave. I love you, Sophia. That changed my life. Be brave, yes. Just, don't help here. Eventually, I met her. Eventually, I had a drink with her in her apartment in Paris. We were like we'd known each other 1,000 years. We laughed, and I brought stamps for her little children, her little boys, Chipi and Eduardo. And we... And wherever we've been in the same place together, we've seen each other. She was signing books in one of her books in an apartment in New York, and I got on the phone, and she said, "Come, I want to see you, but come and watch me. Come and watch me work. Come and see what I do." What are we going to do? She's signing books. I said, "You sign books?" No, Sophia. She gets on the chair, this Wiggly's chair, and there are hundreds of people. And somebody helps her onto the desk where she's standing, and on the high-heeled shoes, and they hand her the book and hold her ankles so she doesn't fall. Sophia Loren. She stands there and she waves at her people, so that knowing that they can't all be there to have a book signed. Again, I thought, yeah, that's how you do your job. She came to my show in Hollywood with her son Eduardo, and as I was putting her together. I do the Kugel, my Kugel sketch. He's putting the makeup on, so I've got Evita's eyelashes on eventually. And I just heard him say, "Hey, Mama, she looks like you."
Oh, wow.
And then many moments of, and letters and talk. And, during COVID, I spoke to her virtually every week, sometimes twice a week. She was so scared. She was in her apartment in Geneva, and her family was in America. They couldn't see each other. Yeah, and all that. And we sang songs on the thingy together. She would sing, and I did this last year when I was with her in Geneva. We sit there and like two kids with ice creams, and then she suddenly said, "Oh, doctor, I'm in trouble." Well, goodness gracious me! For every time a certain man is standing next to me, my pulse becomes erased. And so we sang songs together. Me doing the Peter Sellers part, and she doing the Sophia Loren part. So the bottom line is very simple. I love her so much, because she has helped me so much. And when we did the documentary, they did the documentary of me about 5 years ago called No One Started Laughing. Sophia was in it, because I said to her on the phone, "Oh, we got to do a documentary about me." She said, "About you?" And she said, "I want to be in it." I said, "What?" She said, "Of course, I'm your best friend." "Sophia Loren, you want to be in my film?" She said, "Of course." And so she was. And then when the film was done, we went to, that was another story, filming it with her. It was just so wonderful. And we had the film, and then, is she going to come to the premiere in Cape Town, in Johannesburg? No, she's 80. She's not happy in an aeroplane, I want to take the film to her. And the producer said, you're on. So we did a cassette, and I flew to Geneva, and I said to her, I'm coming to show you the film. She said, we'll have a premiere. I said, yes. I go to her, knock on the door. She's wearing a Hollywood costume. She's like, this is like, I said, look at you. She said, of course, it's a world premiere. And we sit, and I brought her cook sisters from South Africa. We have cook sisters, and we're watching the film. And Charlize Theron was in the movie and was so moving, and Sophia with the tears. And she suddenly took my hand and she said, thank you for making me part of your life. Oh. So why am I saying this to the world? I'm saying this to anybody who's listening. Do not ever be ashamed of falling in love with talent and beauty, even if they are 10,000 miles away. It's what they do to you and for you. And when you know them and meet them, yeah, they're exactly what you wished for. That's why Donald Trump is not on my wall.
I mean, if she hadn't said be brave.
She didn't have to. Nobody,
no, but
yes, I know.
What that did
at that
for
moment,
you.
but all that.
Sure.
I mean, it's a lesson I've learned, and I have a huge love for. I mean, what I do now at the Monte Cassino Theatre, after I've done this 90 minutes on stage with the story to my audience, I say to them, give me a few minutes and I'll join you in the foyer. We can have a drinky together and we can do a selfie. I want to also give you me to put on your wall. And then they tell me, and then these wonderful old ladies who are younger than me say, I also went through that. And my husband and my children and then my grandchildren. And so many have said to me in the last few days, what do I say to my grandchildren who are all wanting to leave?
Yeah.
Because now that I've seen what you've said to me, I want them to come and see it because they'll want to stay. And I said, yes. First of all, it's a choice that everybody can make, but don't run. Don't run away, run towards. If there's a reason to go, run towards. Don't run away. There's no reason to run away. And I am angry. I'm so angry about the fact that so many people have lost hope. I have huge optimism about the future of this country. Because just to tell you, in the last few days, I've had interviews for tiny little newspapers all over Johannesburg, which I love. I love the little freebie newspapers. I think they're terribly important because they spread lots of information.
Mostly they're the only ones that are still around.
Yes. And these young men, and they were not white men, they were black men, young black men with enormous background, have done an enormous amount of homework, have got such wonderful ideas, are writing. And I think to myself, that's all I want to know for me to believe in the future of South Africa. And I have young people. Simple that the politicians have turned themselves into the royal family. They're the royal family, and that's why everything has got to be about them. No, politicians work for us. We do not work for them.
Yeah, but
they must get out there and they must do their job. And quite frankly, everybody is hiding behind our great constitution. Yes.
No.
Now we must just do a little PS. From now on, South African politicians are not innocent until proved guilty. They are guilty until proved innocent. Finish and start. It's time. It's time.
This optimism, this relentless ability that you have to keep working and to keep writing and to keep performing and to keep telling these amazing stories. And you really are unparalleled in your ability to do that. Where does it come from? Because a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people have given up hope. And I suppose there might be one or two of them listening now going, but, I don't have that feeling of optimism. Where do I get it?
Phew, I don't know where I get it. I just know when it sort of takes a day off. It sometimes takes a day off.
And then?
Then I am very careful just to feed the cat with love and have a piece of paper and a pencil nearby so that I can just write down the reasons why I am quite not happy.
Is that where that 49% angry comes from?
Oh
sometimes?
God, yes, but no, it's much more. You see, I don't want them to win. Again, my father, in all this chaos and things of not getting on with each other, I suggested to him he must be a member of the censor board. So at the worst time of me being banned by the censors, my father was a censor. I mean, how's that for crazy? If you can't beat them, go in there and pee in their beds, make a poop on their dinner plates. Yeah. Okay. And my father then said to me about a week after that, he said, come and have lunch with me. He chucked me out of the house. This was during the years of the space. It was in the 70s. And I went back and he said to me, are you scared of them? I said, it's a National Party government. It's no, the censor board. I said, no, but it's the same thing. He said, it's not the same thing. I'm one of them. And they're idiots. They don't know what they're doing. They've just cut up a Fellini film. I don't know what to do. I want to kill them. Don't let them frighten you. Maak hulle belaglik. That came from my pa. Make them
that's strong
laughable.
Stuff.
And I do this now. Make them laughable. But you say, there's a very interesting thing that I am prisoner of at the moment. I am very aware of the thin line between racism and satire.
Sure.
And because I'm a white person, although I did find out that we had a lady in our background many centuries ago who plied her trade on the road between Cape Town and Paarl, and her name was Wilhelmina Opklum. So I'm also a colored. I said, don't talk to me. And I was a colored.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make fun of the politicians as I did with my family, the politicians, the Afrikaners, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
White criticism of black action is not operative. It doesn't work. Although it worked totally, the celebration of Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu and Winnie, I was a huge fan of Winnie, you know, give and take all the darkness and the question marks, and we liked each other. She still sent me a wonderful picture of her in her drag, her Xhosa drag,
sure,
with a note saying, Mr. Uys, the day you do me on stage, please look like this.
Oh,
I like that. The ANC has lost its sense of humor. It's there. Yeah. And also, which I want to, so I am very careful to try and criticize where I can without stepping into the minefield of you racist, you can't do characters like that because you're making fun of us as black people. I don't want to do that. I can make fun of Julius Malema because he's a gift. You just have to use, you know, and I will.
He does it himself.
But I didn't make fun of Jean Blanche either because I have very little respect for certain politicians. I don't want to waste my time on them. But it is a very interesting experience to have Evita there because she is a member of the African National Congress. In 2012, I realized that she's useless in opposition. She has her own little party. Evita, you were the EPP, Evita's People's Party, the EPP, you know, the EPP. And I use that party when I do voter education, which is very important every election time. But she now cooks for reconciliation. She's in the Lutuli House kitchen. She knows that the way to a politician's mind is not through his brain, it's through his stomach. And she just looks at Gwedi Mantashe to know that it's true. And she gets involved, and she has a little Twitter. She has a little little tweet thing, you know, a little tweet thing at Tani Evita, where she shares things with people. She's got 199,000 people. What do you call
followers?
Followers. God, I sound like Zuma trying to say the amount 100 million trillion. And Evita can. Now, Evita can. She can as a member of the ANC, but also as a diplomat, ex-diplomat, also as a Democrat, also as an Afrikaner, also as a woman, also as somebody who's got 3 grandchildren. They're not black, they're not white, they're Barack Obama beige.
Right.
So she's right in the middle of the pudding. She can say these things.
Okay, she can, and I've recently seen Evita doing her thing, and she still skirts really close to that line sometimes where there are people in the audience, maybe, and I'm not going to be disparaging about them, but maybe these people have grown up in an era of cancel culture and political correctness.
I'm aware of that too, yes.
You know, all of that stuff is going on, and they go, when certain things are said. And there may even be people who were old fans of yours who go, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I used to really like Evita, but I can't stomach what she says there. There are always going to be those people.
I might agree with them.
Sure, but it's such a tough line to walk. You said it yourself just now.
Is.
Do you believe that the audience has changed, or that the jokes have changed, or that Evita's changed?
Everything. Audience has changed. Jokes are very thin on the ground because usually it's the truth. With a little tail. And Evita has changed. I mean, first of all, I lost her during COVID. I mean, suddenly it was over. Then I was doing all my stage management things, sorting the wigs out.
Did it take a while, just incidentally, did it take a while to get back into her?
Well, this is what I'm telling you.
Oh.
I found this gray wig, and I suddenly thought, but what's Evita doing now in this lockdown? She can't go to the hairdresser. she's going to be without a hairdresser for how many months? What happens to a woman's brown hair when she doesn't have it dyed properly? She will not be a happy cat. And so I put on this wig, and it was a Meryl Streep wig. It was a sort of a short Judi Dench look.
Right.
And I thought, there we are. And when Evita made her first appearance, going with the Premier of the Western Cape, Mr. Windy, to have a vaccination, she had a new look, and the media went crazy. She was on the front page of even The Citizen. No, not just The Citizen, even the City Press and all the, who aren't keen to putting white people anywhere. But there she was. And so it was really a very nice renaissance. So she's strong. Now she's working very hard to sort out the menu for Vladimir Putin when he comes.
Yes.
She's already arranged for him to actually take meals in her kitchen, because she locks the door, nobody comes into her
and
kitchen.
No one will arrest him there.
No, she's going to say that he's her husband.
Oh.
And he might joke at you. So we're going to go full steam ahead in this. And the next year, I've got a piece coming on in Johannesburg just before the election, which I am not taking lightly. The election, I'm not taking lightly at all.
Okay.
And it is Evita who is now in front of the Disciplinary Commission of the African National Congress, because she's taking the party into disrepute. Oh, that opens 1,000 windows and 12 doors. So I am working at it. And please, members in Luthuli House, keep giving me material.
Well,
especially
they can't help
Mbulula,
Fikile,
Fikile. I've been praying for you for so long. Just keep doing what you're doing, and the ANC will be something of the past very quickly.
So voter education and AIDS are two things just off the top of my head that you've mentioned now that are massively important to you, because during the whole HIV situation that Thabo Mbeki created, where, HIV is not related to AIDS, and we don't have a policy, and we're not going to supply antiretrovirals, and it was the most bizarre thing. Looking back now,
beetroots, African potatoes, and garlic.
When I think back on it, this is the level of just ham-handed and stupid stuff that we've forgotten that was an era we lived through. But you took it seriously, and you were one of the brave voices who continued to fight that good fight. And voter education is another one. And there are a few others that you take very seriously. Well, you deploy the characters, you deploy yourself, you do a lot of this stuff not for money.
No. That was a very interesting moment. The HIV thing was, first of all, the 388,000 people, 380. When I read all these letters, Thabo Mbeki writes 12-page letters, clever man. I said, yes, darling, but you were responsible for the confusion that led to the death of 388,000 people, more that died of COVID in South Africa. So I'm going to remind people, Thabo, I'm watching you. I knew, 2001. I mean, I've been living with this terror of HIV/AIDS, being gay. Oh my God, have I done the wrong thing?
It was a gay thing.
It was a gay thing.
I mean, you remember being around at the time when Freddie Mercury,
yes,
it was devastating.
And my friends and people I knew, and things I had done. I mean, heaven's sake, you're not gay to just talk about it, you're gay to do it. Hello.
Yeah.
Was that, crikey. And then I said, I'm denying my own anger here, and I've got to do something. So I thought I have got to start putting it into my work, because the democracy was a very nice thing to celebrate, but it wasn't as entertaining as fascism. But suddenly there was HIV and AIDS and Mbeki. And so I thought, no, I must do my research, which I did, and I sort of structured a little sort of some sketches and characters, and what will Tani Evita do, and what will, And then I thought, I'm going to do this. I must do this somewhere. I'm going to do this at some schools. Maybe I can do it at some schools, because I'll have some feedback from the kids, because it's about sex. And so I phoned a few schools, and the Afrikaans one said, near. And the English one says, oh, yes, very nice. How much do you charge? And I said, no. Good Lord. It's really, truly, it's a pleasure. The best thing I ever did in my life. I mean, first of all, how do you ask money to tell somebody that here's something that you might use not to die of? And I did it. I was busy, and I was busy for years and years. And I think a few million children were part of that audience of mine, and I meet them now, the middle-aged men and women, who now say to me, you know, you were at our school and you waggled that penis around, not mine, oh no, but a big rubber one, a big white one. And then I said the black one was smaller than the white one. And we had fun about that, you know. And I still do it. I still take that story to schools because there has been no cure for AIDS. People think there's a cure. There isn't a cure. There's treatment. And it's probably quite expensive or difficult.
It's interesting how it's kind of fallen off the radar, huh?
It has. But so I have and voter education is also extremely important, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to do it. But if you know that you are contributing to something that might make it a better world. So Evita, we did this in 1999. I did a 6-week trip with Lynn Marie, my wonderful producer and great friend. And we did I can't remember, 60. We did every day. We did 2 shows from Cape Town to Polokwane. It was Pieter-Dirk in those days, through Pretoria, through Johannesburg, through Soweto, with Evita talking about voting. What is voting? And voting is you're free. You don't have to pay to vote, and it is precious, and it is secret, and all the things. But also with humor, and in township Mamelodi, and with some women sitting, you could see their faces like, hey, well, what is this? And there's somebody who whispered, oh, it's a boy, it's a man. And they love you. They come and they hug you. I mean, that's just wonderful.
Sure.
So, okay. So you do this and you do that. And so I went to schools and I've been doing that. And that's also part of my inspiration. You go to a room full of young kids who, first of all, give you the time and don't spend time with their little machines.
Right.
I love it, and it's and you know, and I say to them, I say, listen, when I started the AIDS thing, and I said, listen, I'm 45, and you're 14. Let's make a deal. I make you feel 20, and you can make me feel 16, and then we're on the same level. You know, we have the same energy.
When you talk about things like history, and I'm afraid not enough people read history books, not enough people are interested in their own personal history. They don't ask their parents questions. Grandparents, the things that you've been through that have been the source of so much pain and anguish later on in life that you wish you'd done. And South Africa has a very short memory, huh? I mean, we've already forgotten about the Zuma years. People are already talking about how Cyril's now he's the villain. And COVID, people have forgotten about COVID. But now you talk about Thabo Mbeki and Mandela, and you talk about PV. Now we're digging so far back that for many people, these aren't even living memories. These are things that are one page out of the syllabus that they learn because they have to in primary school, and later on they can get rid of history. But in some way, the stuff that you have done is like a bit of a time capsule too. And when people rediscover it, as you said, these young people are doing on TikTok now, for example. It's the gateway into that world.
Well, I hope so. That's why I'm very keen to just remind people that if you go into my pdu.co.za, my website, enjoy the book. The book's there. There's 488 pages of history, and not just history, but hysteria as well, and laughter, and more questions. And it'll keep going as long as I'm here, not fall over. I'll do the next editions, and they'll also be on the website, because it's like my program with HIV. I don't want to charge you money, 500, to read about where we were. Let us remember where we come from so we can celebrate where we are going. And make no mistake, I am ready to celebrate where we are going. I am not getting my bag packed for Perth.
No.
I have no conception of that. I'm going to keep rattling the cage of people who don't think that there is a future for South Africa. I mean, you know, if you think back 30 years about the politicians who were destroying us, you can't even remember their names. The ones that are hanging around, you know, looting. Okay, we know where you live. You know, we'll come and dance naked in the garden, and then you'll see how embarrassed you are when we don't ask you to be naked as well. So, you know, keep smiling. It's worth it.
Peter, you know, those words of Sophia Lorenz and that letter after your mum died just are going to be with me forever. Be brave. We've all got to be a little bit braver.
Good.
You are a tremendous inspiration. You are a national treasure. And I hope you will keep doing what you're doing for another 100 years.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.